welcome back to the Flannel Phillip channel. I have a special opportunity to be able to introduce you to the newest member of our fleet here at Bulow Trucking. You might recognize this Peterbilt 379. This is Bruce Smith's old truck, and my boss Brian just recently purchased it from the Smith family, and so because it's going to be going to work for Bulow Trucking, we need to change the lettering on the side of the truck, and Brian's given me the opportunity to take the vinyl lettering off and do some hand painted lettering like we have on some of the other Kenworths in the fleet. So I'm honored, and it's going to be pretty cool. So I wanted to take a chance and show you a little bit more of the truck itself. And for those of you that haven't seen that video, you'll find it down on my channel here. It was the day of Bruce Smith's funeral that the family asked me to drive the truck back to the farm one last time. So anyway, neat video. I hope you'll check that out. But come with me. Let me show you a little bit of this 2000 Peterbilt 379 long hood. It's Caterpillar powered, 13 speed. I'm not 100% sure about the wheelbase. I'll have to ask about it. But this is the Smith Farms lettering that's on this truck, and it's bittersweet for me because a lot of us, for years and years, we would see Bruce's truck and we would see John's truck, his son. And they were always running together, the green truck and the blue truck. Bruce and John all the time. So those of you that drive end dump in southern Minnesota, you guys know what I'm talking about. The two from Waterville. So anyway, times change, situations change, trucks go through changes in their life, and that actually is part of what I love about machines that have a story to tell, is that they go through phases in their life. And so that's a little bit kind of what I want to share with you. Is this truck is ending one part of its story and it's beginning the next chapter. And we're going to illustrate that by taking off the Smith Farms vinyl, and we're going to put on some hand-painted lettering of Brian Bulow. We're going to put on the DOT number, and I'm not exactly sure what truck number this is going to end up as, but usually Brian chooses to use the last 2 or 3 digits of the VIN number of that truck. So it makes it a little bit easier when he's ordering parts to remember what truck, what VIN number, and things like that. That's just kind of a tradition that he and his dad have had for a long time. So come with me, let's find out what truck number this Peterbilt's going to be in the fleet, because I don't even know. All right. So, looking at the VIN number here, looks like 962 or 952. Boy, that is tough to tell if it's a 9 or a 6. Yeah. Bet we've got some other evidence in here. It's going to be either truck 62 or 962. All right. This is a gorgeous machine. It's got tons of power, and yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm excited about it. So there's the beginning of the project, and I'm going to probably come back on Saturday and begin the process of doing my lettering. So I have a pattern that I started with my truck, and then on truck number 8. Now the pattern's going to be used on the Peterbilt. So here we go. Alright, so I was doing some filming earlier until I realized that my microphones were not working correctly. So what I had showed you then was getting some of the old vinyl off the sides of the truck. And obviously you can see that there's some sun fading and things like that from where the old vinyl was blocking some of the UV rays. And if Brian was concerned about that type of thing, we could probably get some abrasives and buff some of that out and try and bring that back. But
That's really not something that he was too concerned about. So in the light you can see the old logo, but in some ways that's just sort of telling the story of the truck, you know. So it really doesn't bother him too bad. And my main goal today was to get the old adhesive off after the vinyl was off, and make sure that the paint's going to stick and not give us any trouble. So heat gun was very helpful. These eraser wheels are awesome. So if you get your hand on one of those, pinstripe removers, adhesive remover, they're awesome. You might be curious about some of the chemicals that I used. Rule of thumb is you only go as aggressive as you have to, and this vinyl had a lot of adhesive stuck to it, and so I was having to use some brake wash, some alcohol, some acetone, and for some parts of it I even had to go with a little bit of oven cleaner, which again, it's very harsh. Just like sandpaper, you only want to, you know, go as harsh as you absolutely have to get that stuff off, and you want to be gentle. You don't want to create a big swirly blob where the clear coat's coming off, or it makes a bunch of fade, and yeah, not good. So anyway, back to where I was at. Everything is prepped, the canvas is ready to go, and I got out my pattern. This is a paper pattern that I created back in 2018 for Brian. This will be the fourth truck that gets this paper pattern. It's something I just freehand drew up. He really liked the font style and things like that. Got kind of old-timey sort of thing looking. This has been on two Kenworths and the toolboxes of a Peterbilt, and now it's going to go in the doors of this Pete. So you can see the holes that are punched in certain spots, and there's a star wheel tool that will go along, and you just trace the lines with that star wheel tool and puts little tiny pinholes in everything. Okay, so once that pattern is on there, and I'll show you on the other side, you start pouncing it with this pouncer, and pop, 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 pop as you go and wipe, and you can see it transfers through all those little tiny dot holes, and I can see where to draw my lines. So that's this side. I'm going to do the chalk lines on the other side, and you can watch me do that, and then after that we go to stabilo pencil and then paint. Here we go. Alright, time to mix up some paint. I'm using Alpha Enamel. They are a sponsor of mine, and so of course I'm going to use their stuff. I'm going to use some of their low temp reducer. I'm also putting a little bit of hardener in there. That's going to make the paint stand up a little bit better, grab on, and then hopefully not go flying once it gets hit with the pressure washer, because these things get washed at least once a week, and we want it to grab on and stay. So mixing away, trying to get the right consistency, and yeah, it's a never-ending battle to just deal with the conditions as they change. So there's step one with the tape pulled off, and I wanted to show you a couple things. There are some letters that need to go a little bit lower and a little bit higher than your tape line. Mainly it's the rounded edges of these letters, okay? So they need to poke down just a little bit more because they're rounded, and that's totally normal. So I'm putting you in the shadow here a little bit, but just round it off. and I'm using, let me show you, using a brush. This is a MAC quill, lettering quill, and I specifically chose this size because when you're doing lettering, you want to try and keep your strokes to about half the width of your letter. Okay, so for my fatter ones, my bigger letters, I was going with a MAC medium quill. Okay, they call that the medium. This one that I'm using right now is the small. I have extra small, extra small, on down. But that's the way I was taught, is when you're doing lettering, you're gonna want your brush stroke about half the width. I'm just doing touch-ups here. Half the width of what your thickness of your letter is as you push down and pull your line. Okay, I also need to finish my G. You can see that I did not continue the D in Dodge Center right there. So anyway, just wanted to explain that quick. And while my paint is still in good shape and hasn't dried out too much, I'm going to switch over to the driver's side, and then we'll do our numbers up here too. Brian kind of saw what I did freehand. I just scratched that out in Stabilo pen, and he said, "Yep, looks good, go for it." So, yep, that's what we're doing, going for it. Lunch, because I found out that my hands start to get kind of shaky if I don't keep my blood sugar where it belongs and keep eating. And so anyway, time to get on to this one. I forgot to mention also, this tool here is called a maul stick, and that's really helpful for just having like a hand rest. If you can't put your hand somewhere where you might smear paint that you've already been over. I usually work from left to right, so I'm not putting my hands on it. But anyway, that's what that's called. It's an old sign painter's tool, and you just set that thing there and it gives you a hand rest. So, all right, paint is flowing, music is on, let's keep rolling. With that portion done, now what I want to do is I'm going to switch over to a pinstriping brush. This is a MAC 40. It's kind of my go-to brush. This is probably my least favorite part of this entire design that I came up with. If I had my way, I would lay the truck doors down and I would be able to pull the lines toward me, but I don't have that option while they're on the truck. So all we can do is just try and pull the straightest line I possibly can to the side with stacks and air cleaners and stuff in the way, but it's all right. Just go for it and do your best, right? Thing about pinstriping is the consistency of the paint is so critical in getting it to flow correctly so that it's not too dry, that your brush is skipping across the surface, and not too wet, and that you're causing drips and runs, and the pressure of the brush on the surface. You don't want to push in too hard and mush it, and a lot of things can go wrong and make it look bad. What I'm doing down here is paletting. I'm just continually pulling paint to the
very tip of the brush. Some guys use their fingers to do that, and I try not to, but sometimes I do. Try and use a magazine when I can. I'll go in there and I'll touch them up a little bit more. I actually want the lines to be thicker up here at the start by the word, and then to thin out as they go. So I'm going to go back over them a second time and touch up each one, but I want to at least get my baseline in there first. Same paint that I've been working with since the very beginning of the project. I just keep using a little bit more reducer as it thickens up and starts to harden, and I work it. Try and keep it consistent as much as I can. All right, last section. Here we go. Sorry if I'm blocking the shot. Really easy to accidentally hold your breath. You want to continue to breathe. So hit the brush and pull. It's easy to go too slow and get shaky too. You'll actually have a straighter line if you just pull it and move. There. All right. I'll go back up and touch some of those up. I want them almost a teardrop shape, a little bit. Not super obvious, but I do want them a little bit thicker and heavier up here, almost touching, and then thin out on the edges.
So we're done with silver now. Going to move on to black. So we're going to add a drop shadow down and to the right. So on the right side and on the bottom of each of these letters, it's going to be a drop shadow, and I'm going to outline as well. A nice thin black outline should really make it pop. told Brian that I'd really like to do a memorial on the back, and he agreed. He really wanted something like that done too. So now the project is done. Hey, we're really gonna miss Bruce and his son John out there on the road, and so if you haven't checked out the video of when we took this truck back to the farm, that's further down on the channel. I hope you'll go give that one a look, and thank you for joining me on this episode. This was an awesome opportunity. I'm glad you got to come along. Thank you for supporting the channel. Again, I don't see the comments, but if you do comment, I appreciate that because it helps push our videos out. If you want to interact with me, I'll be at Instagram. It's at @flannel_Phillip, and we can chat there. So thanks again, everybody. Peace and grease.